right now?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome. Happy Wednesday, friends. It is week 4 of Nature's Not Canceled, and Danielle and I have switched places here. I'm the one behind the camera. Last week, her and Lindsay, another board member, took you on a walk through the watershed. But we're back here at my yard today for one of my favorite themes of all time, and that's forests and trees. So you can see I'm wearing my name tag, Sheila Voss tree hugger. I won't go into the backstory of this, but it was given to me by a friend, a colleague who knew my deep lifelong love for trees. Anyway, so welcome to week 4. So I'm going to kick it off. We're gonna go through the yard here with the help of my tree friends to go through 5 life lessons. But before I do that, let me kick it off with a question to all of you. Who out there lives in a forest? Think about that question. Think hard. I bet many of you answered no, right? Because when you think of forest, you think of some faraway remote wilderness or some place with lots of trees right next to each other, or that Ewok forest from whatever Star Wars episode that was. I forget which number, and for all the Star Wars nerds out there, I'm sorry, I forget which number that was, but you know the one I'm talking about. But honestly, the trees right here among us, in your yard, in my yard, in your neighborhood, in your towns, in your cities, those all make up a forest too, an urban forest. An urban forests are, of course, real different from an old growth or mature forest, but they're a forest nonetheless. So think about that. We all live in a forest. So we're going to take a walk here to learn about 5 trees and 5 life lessons. But throughout here, I'm going to challenge you all to think about something as we go through this walk today. Think about a specific tree, your favorite tree. Now, this could be your favorite tree for all sorts of reasons. It could be one in your own yard. It could be one that you planted and have watched grow. It could be one that you just see around you and just like, that it makes you happy. It could be for any reason. So I'll start. I'm a native Floridian, actually. I've only lived in the Midwest here for about 20 years. And as a native Floridian, my favorite tree is a southern magnolia, but not any southern magnolia. A specific southern magnolia that still lives in the front yard of my childhood home. So if my mom is watching, I can't hug you, but if you hug that magnolia today, that'll at least be something that we can bond over. Anyway, that's my favorite childhood tree. But since living in the Midwest, let me introduce you to one of my other new favorite trees. So come on, don't fall. All right. This brings us to one of my other favorite trees. You can probably already tell what tree this is. It's an iconic classic tree of the Midwest, Eastern redbud. This tree is cool for so many reasons. Goodness, some of them are its flowers. So its flowers are known as, here's a cool science word, cauliferous, or it's exhibiting cauliflower, which means that they're growing on the branches, which is a pretty unique trait for flowering woody plants. But this tree exhibits it, which is super cool. The other cool thing about these flowers is that they're really deep inside. So it's not exactly warm today, but it is sunny. And on a sunny, warm day, the bees that come to these flowers are super cool because they're long-tongued bees. Things like blueberry bees or carpenter bees. Bees that actually have those tongues that can get all the way in there. So the other cool thing about this tree, not only is it a beautiful harbinger of spring, it's among the first to bloom out here. It's got gorgeous lavender flowers, but the insects that it attracts are super cool as well. So this is a native tree. It's a native understory tree, meaning you'll find it in native forests and woods. It and dogwood are the first to flower. It's taking advantage of the open canopy and that sun coming in. In a landscape like this, it's a great landscape tree as well, especially in places where you don't want a tree to get too tall, right? So this is a great tree for like under a power line. And And it's a tree that is going to teach us our very first life lesson. So forest lesson number 1, invest in your roots. So this tree right here, I'm going to ask our production team labor here, this is my son Will, to demonstrate something. So the roots of this tree, of course, we can't see them, right? But he's going to demonstrate something that anyone can do to take care of the roots, and that's to mulch it properly. And what he's doing, you can see, is he's not mulching right up to the base of the tree. He's kind of making a donut shape. And again, this is like homemade mulch from my compost bin, but the store-bought mulch worked. Oh, look, Jake is helping too, making sure that that Will is doing it right. But the point that I'm making here, and that William is making here, is that we do not want mulch to go right up to the base, right? We want the mulch to stay on the edge here to keep the weeds down, as well as to make sure that this soil right in the root zone, so this whole area is the root zone, stays permeable. So what we don't want is turf going right up to the edge, because, you know, honestly, trees don't like grass. You think of a tree in a forest. Think of, you know, you don't see lawn or turf going right up to it. When you mow around too close to the edge of a tree, to the base of a tree, you're going to compact that root zone. You're going to make it less permeable to rain. And what you want is that moisture to go directly into the root zone. And another visual here is, if I was even a better tree tender here, I would have this mulch zone coming all the way out to the drip line. A drip line is, if you think of this tree and you think of its very far edges, its drip line is the line right here where the farthest edge goes around. So imagine a circle that is the same as the drip line of the tree. That's actually what this tree would probably prefer. So I encourage you all to think bigger with your mulch circles. And again, we don't want those anthills. We want those donuts. So donuts are good, right? I mean, donuts are good. It's really easy to remember. The life lesson here is, again, invest in your roots. So similar to the roots of a tree, our own personal foundation is important. So your roots, my roots, could be our family, our friends, our community, and it's really important to invest in those roots. And if you take care of them, and if you keep them healthy and you invest in them, they can keep you grounded, and it'll give you resources to grow and thrive in the future. So that's life lesson number 1, thanks to the redbud. Okay, let's go over to the bald cypress. It's a beautiful day. It's a little chilly for spring, but goodness, the birds are sure enjoying it. Okay, so we're going to get to another very, very cool tree. This one, bald cypress. It's another native. This one's not a common one in a lot of yards, because it sure does need certain conditions, right? So this tree thrives in wet environments. So you'll often see this in low-lying bottomland areas, next to rivers or wetlands or swamps. It does well here in my yard. Jello sure likes it as well, because this is kind of a low-lying area, and there's a creek down there too, so the water runs down this way. Anyway, a very cool tree, a deciduous conifer. So cool, more cool science words. Extra bonus points for anyone writing down the cool science words. Cauliflowery over there for the flowering habit. Deciduous conifer. So deciduous means that it's going to lose its leaves, like a lot of broadleaf trees lose their leaves. That's deciduous. But conifer means it's cone bearing. So right now we're not in the season where we can see the cones. We'll see those later this summer. But the cones of this tree are super cool. They look like little earths. They're little orbs that look like little earths, and ducks love them, and squirrels love them, and so other wildlife loves them. But why we're at this tree right now is we want to kind of zoom in and see what it's doing. So when you zoom out, it doesn't look like this tree is alive yet, but it is. It's leafing out. How does it know this? How does it know when to do this? So trees pay attention, okay? They have a heightened awareness for changes in the seasons. They use their equivalent of nerve cells to figure out shifts in temperature, wind, and light. And they don't resist those changes in the weather or pretend they don't exist. They just power through them. And they are acutely aware of them. And they accept them and they adapt to them. And they control what they can control, right? This all goes back to paying attention. They pay attention. You know, different types of trees grow differently. This tree is exhibiting a type of growth habit where, again, this drip line, we've kept it non-turfed so that the water can go in. This particular tree exhibits things like knees. So here's some examples of knees with bald cypress. These are roots that, again, add to its stability. So it's a cool adaptation of how this tree grows differently. So different types of trees grow differently. And, you know, it can be a challenge for a tree to pace itself and modify its growth habits depending on the environmental conditions, but they do it. And you can probably already guess the life lesson here. We live in a speed-obsessed, we live in a speed-obsessed society, right? So all of us are go, 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 right? We're trying to send that email real quick. We're trying to get from school to work. We're trying to get from McDonald's to Taco Bell. I don't know what we're trying to do, but we're trying to do it super, super quick. But when you look at trees and think about trees, they're taking their time. They're paying attention to their environment. They're patient. They can control what they can control. They accept it all. And they, I mean, think about it. When was the last time you saw a tree rush to grow? You don't. Yet think about how beautiful it is and all of the services that it does. I mean, not only is it growing and it's going to provide habitat for wildlife, it's going to soak up carbon, it's going to pump out oxygen for you and me, it's doing all those things, and it's doing it on its own sweet time. So that's the life lesson, is take your time, pay attention, and you too can do wonderful, beautiful things for the world. So that's life lesson number 2. For life lesson number 3, we're going to head to the nature trail. And I think the dogs might join us. Oh gosh. I could hang out here.
All day.
All day. All day. You want to do this with me all day?
Yeah. We could just move throughout your yard. So many beautiful trees here.
Okay, so now we're headed to the largest tree in my yard. And it's an old cottonwood. And here I'm going to need my production assistant, Will. Okay, so Danielle, if you kind of want to pan up that sucker. Okay, so this is a really mature old cottonwood. And it's I clearly did not plant this tree, right? This tree has been here for quite a long time. And just by observing it and living with it, we've lived in this yard here for about 18 years. And it's been great living next to it and watching it and seeing its growth patterns. You can see that it's lived a life and it's healed itself in different places. But we're going to... William and I are going to demonstrate something with this tree that you guys can do and should do with all of your trees, and that's to measure something called DBH, which stands for diameter at breast height. DBH is a really cool measurement, very easy one to do. It comes in handy. A lot of professionals use this measurement, foresters, arborists, even people who are managing the urban tree canopy of cities for carbon storage. So DBH is a good basic measurement, and you can measure it using household materials. So me and William are going to demonstrate. You ready? Yep. Okay, and this counts, by the way, as extra credit math. So any math teachers or math students, pay attention. If you learn how to measure DBH and then do it for all the trees in your yard, I bet all the math teachers out there will give you extra credit, okay? So pay attention. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. So DBH first is, again, it's diameter at breast height. So, you know, that breast height is about this, right? Your chest. Now, everybody's different heights, right? So basically what you want to do is you want to get the highest point of the soil at the base of the tree. So that's probably like right here, right? So you want to start measuring at the base of the tree, and you want to measure. You want to hold that, William. You want to measure, and I'll hold this. You want to measure 4.5 feet up. So this is 4. So there we go. 4.5 feet up is there. Or if you're metric fans, I'm a big metric fan. I just don't have a metric tape measure, so sorry, metric fans. That's 1.35 meters. Okay, about so 4.5 feet up. So 4 feet 6 inches right there. So that's where we're going to measure the circumference. Okay, so I'm going to hold my finger there, and production assistant Will is going to get some string, and I'm going to hold one end of the string. Okay, or rope, whatever you have. Nothing fancy here. There's nothing fancy here. And he's going to walk around without tripping to measure the circumference of this big old tree, this big mature tree that I feel has seen our family grow, and I'm so thankful for it every day. So we're going to measure it. I, by the way, haven't done this yet with this tree, so I'm kind of excited. Okay.
Yeah, he's coming. There he is.
Well, is it straight over there, Will? Is it straight? Sort of? Yeah? Okay. So basically, I'm going to tighten it up here. Basically, it's right here. Okay, so now, this is the measurement. So now we're going to take this, and I'm going to hold it right here. I'm going to take one side of here, and we're going to measure this. So this is the circumference of this tree, right? So we're going to measure what it is. Okay. Measure all the way. Well, what is it?
About 11 feet 3 inches and a half, 3.5 inches.
11 feet 3
and a half inches.
Okay, 11 feet 3.5 inches. Okay, so remember that, 11 and a half, 3.5 inches. Now, I'm going to ask William, do you have your phone?
No, I do not.
Oh, okay, so if we had a phone, well, so what you would do is you would take 11 and 3.5 inches and divide that by pi. Who out there knows pi? It's about 3.14, right? So if you divide your circumference, so basically 11 and 3.5 inches by pi, you would get your diameter in breast height. And diameter at breast height metric, like I said, is a really important measure. It can not only measure biomass and volume of a tree, but also carbon storage of a tree. So increasingly, DBH measurements of trees are helping cities and counties and states know what the carbon storage potential is of their urban tree canopy. And if they have that measurement, then they know how much more they can plant and where exactly. So a cool activity to do is go around to your trees, and we'll put this information also on the website as Danielle is nodding.
Yes.
We'll put it on the website as well, and give you some really cool resources like iTree and other things to do this. But it's real simple. So measure the circumference, measure that out, divide it by pi, 3.14, and you get diameter at breast height. You get a DBH measure. Maybe what we'll do, since we have a lot of time on our hands, is we'll do DBH measures for all the trees. What do you think? Extra credit? Extra math credit?
He looks very excited.
Okay, but the life lesson here for this tree is really about healing yourself. So I picked this tree to measure because it's the oldest tree in my yard. It's the biggest tree, and I've come to respect it a great deal. Like I said, you can, when you look at it, you can see parts of it where it's healed itself, and whether that's from an accident or disease or a lightning storm, it did this. So, you know, when it was injured, tree cells would like flow around the wound and seal it off. So trees do this; they can heal themselves, and I think that that's a really cool lesson for all of us, right? That we have the ability to heal ourselves and adapt, and especially now, you know. So in response to adversity or response to anything hard, if we can heal ourselves, it'll help us. It'll help us help others as well. So that's tree life lesson number 3, thanks to this awesome mother cottonwood that I have. So let's go down and check out tree number 4 for life lesson number 4. This is a little creek right here by our home, and so we've created over the past several years this little nature trail that goes through.
Yeah, this is very nice.
So this tree right here. So I'm going to walk around it so that Danielle can show you some things going on with this tree. And you can see, if you stand back here, Danielle, you can see there's a cavity up here.
Yep. Ooh.
Now, this is clearly, so having some issues with light here, but this is a dead tree. This is a far dead tree, but we've kept it here. One, it's not posing any danger to any structures or anything like that. And we've kept it here for a couple important reasons. One, dead trees are fantastic. Dead trees play such a role in a forest. They often are not only homes for animals. Like, we think that cavity up there, we have a resident opossum that's in our yard, and we think that might be where it lives. Of course, to me, it also looks like a perfect little home for an owl family. Some birds of prey, some hawks, will only roost in dead trees. If this dead tree was taller, it would be a perfect roost for like a hawk that keeps his eye out on the horizon for some cool prey running around. So anyway, not only is it home for animals, but as it's decomposing, and lots of decomposers are in this. So every now and then after a rain, I'll see a whole slew of mushrooms underneath it. I'll see some bracket fungus coming out of it. I also was telling Danielle earlier that on sunny days recently, there's little holes in this tree, and I see bees coming in and out of it. So it could be a beehive. My point is that dead trees and dying trees are a hugely important part of the community, and they recycle nutrients back into the community. So when I would challenge you, when you see a dead tree, and again, many people think first and foremost, oh my gosh, we got to cut that sucker down. Now, I of course, I'm not a forester or an arborist, and you have to cut something down if it's posing danger to life or limb or structures, property, etc. But in an environment like this, we're leaving this, and I lied with that red bud. That was one of my favorite trees. This right now is one of my favorite trees because it's lived its life and it's still giving. I hope you guys, lots of great tree books out there. The Giving Tree is one of my favorites as well, but this tree is still giving. So I walk by it all the time, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. So the point here is life lesson number 4, and that's help your community. So this tree is not only helping its community, but all the trees around here are not just surviving on their own. They're all connected underground with a network of roots and a fungal network that basically allows them to not only communicate with each other, but share resources. One of the questions in this week's quiz is if trees talk to each other. It's a little bit of a trick question, I'm sorry for that. But they do communicate to each other, and there's really cool research. I'm going to ask my production assistant here to show me this. So this is an awesome book by Peter Wolleben, and this copy of this book was given to me by Watershed Nature Center's previous executive director, Sarah. So Sarah, if you're watching, thank you for this book. I love it. I'm going to read one quote out of this book that I absolutely love about trees and community. A tree is not a forest. On its own, a tree cannot establish a consistent local climate. It is at the mercy of the wind and weather. But together, many trees create an ecosystem that moderates the extremes of heat and cold, stores a great deal of water, and generates a great deal of humidity. In this environment, trees can live to be very old. To get to this point, the tree community must remain intact no matter what. So you can probably already guess the life lesson here. Working together as a community is something that humans do really well. I mean, think back to the Stone Age. If we didn't work as a community, we wouldn't be here as a species. And that said, we sometimes forget that part of our story. I think right now at this moment in time, it's kind of odd because we're all being asked to self-isolate, but yet when I reflect on this, it seems like we're doing that as a community. So it feels good to be connected and bonded with your community. I see examples, we all see examples every day, every moment recently about community helping each other. So that's a lesson that trees have known for millions of years, and it's one that we need to keep mindful of and practice again and again. So that's life lesson number 4. So life lesson number 5, we're going to stay in this basic area, but we're going to walk right here for a second. And this is our last lesson of the morning. I need lesson number 5 here. So lesson number 5 is about embracing diversity. So right here in this one section right here, we have cottonwoods, we have mulberries, we have elms, we have birches, we have oaks, we have a little baby sassafras right there. We've got viburnum. So some of these trees I didn't plant, but some of them I did. And you know, the right tree, right place. You know, birches of course also like being near water and creeks. Some of these slippery elms, which used to be one of the most common trees in here, it still is. Diversity makes this place stronger. It makes it more resilient. Embrace diversity is a lesson that healthy forests and healthy habitats know really well. Diversity is a real core theme in ecology. It's a really complex one. I'm not going to be able to do it justice here with a simple Facebook Live post, but it breaks down like this. The more diverse an ecosystem is, a forest, a prairie, the stronger it is, the more resilient it is, the healthier it is. And I think the same can be said of human communities. The more diverse we are, the more skills, traits, and talents we have to help in the face of adversity, to strengthen each other, to lift each other up. When some people are high, other people are low, vice versa. You get the idea, you get the life lesson. Diversity equals strength. Another one of my favorite quotes is from Vandana Shiva. She said, "Uniformity is not nature's way, diversity is nature's way." And isn't that the truth? So with that, that's our Facebook Live. We're not in an old growth forest today, but we're in an urban forest, and you have one too in your very own neighborhood, in your very own yard, whether you know it or not. So to recap, our 5 life lessons from these great tree friends of mine: invest in your roots, pay attention, heal yourself, help your community, and embrace diversity. So we said at the beginning to keep in mind that tree, that favorite tree of yours. So here's our end challenge. When you think about that tree, think about it differently. Think about it with those 5 life lessons in mind. Look at it differently when you see it next. Hug it differently when you see it next. Pay attention to them. Spend time with them. They're great healers themselves when you spend time with them. And also plant a few this month. There's some really cool programs going on. Heartland's Conservancy, our friends at Heartland's Conservancy has a tree planting challenge going on in April. Our friends across the river, Forest Relief of Missouri, you can still buy native trees from them. There's all sorts of, our own city of Edwardsville has a tree beautification committee where if you buy a tree for your landscape, they'll cost share with you 50-50. So look, no matter what community you're in, there's helpers that want to help make it easier to be good to trees, to plant new baby trees, to take care of the large mature ones that are doing all the heavy lifting in terms of cleaning and cooling our air. And finally, seek out as much tree diversity as you can, right? So challenge yourself to get familiar with all the different types of trees. In short, look to the trees. They have a lot to teach us. So that's it for week number 4. Thank you for joining us. Make sure to check out the website for more resources about anything that we've talked about here. And